Hey guys, it's your old pal Nito King back with more Rayman, and today we're moving on to World 5, the Cave of Scops. Starting with Crystal Palace. And the good news is we're leaving behind a lot of the really annoying things from earlier in the game, like slippery floors, and the Ting Magician. And the first secret is really easy to miss. You've got to jump slightly over the entrance sign. And that makes this elevator appear over on the left, and you may notice elevators in this world have spikes on the bottom. And they will hurt you. It's kind of a running theme in this world. Having ditched the slippery floors, we're getting into a lot of spikes, and very, very little floor that's safe to stand on. For example, these ledges that I just jumped across to make the first cage appear represent about half of the floors in this entire level that are safe to stand on. Mostly we're going to be taken to the air and jumping from grappling hook to grappling hook. As you notice, we've got a lot of those jumps where you have to jump at the right moment before you hit the spikes, lots of descending hooks, and then there's this part. This is the hardest part of the entire level, right here. Doesn't seem so bad quite yet. Make it through all the spikes, or all the hooks pretty easily. And then the spikes appear when we go up to the checkpoint. Now that spike is much more annoying than it looks, because you're so used to jumping off the grappling hook at the right time, and you get a nice vertical lift there. Well, here, the vertical lift will carry you into the spike. So you gotta make this tiny jump, and still be able to get to the grappling hook on the other side. On the plus side, once you've opened this cage, you're free to move forward in the level. You don't have to come back again. And if you're really lucky, you might actually manage to make the hook anyway. Another secret right behind me, the third cage sitting on top of a spiked platform. Not too hard to deal with, but we're going to be seeing many, many more cages in precarious locations as the level goes on. And otherwise, just a lot of precision grappling. The good news is, if you manage to make it through World 4, you've got the grappling skills required. It sort of comes with the territory. And this tree is kind of difficult to navigate. If you swing the wrong way on one of those hooks, you'll hit the spikes and you'll die. But there we go, the halfway point of the level. Yeah! It's not really as hard as it could be, I think. The hardest part of the game is pretty much behind us at this point. And now we've just got a lot more elevators. I don't know whether the spikes on the bottom of these platforms will hurt you or not, because you don't really have an opportunity to hit one of them from the bottom. I don't think they do. I think those are just decorative. But now, watch carefully at this upcoming part. We've got to jump across a bunch of descending platforms between spikes. And you can notice the secret below this one, right? Got those ledges over to the side, quite conspicuous. And the good news is I'm pretty sure these are all of the lightning shooting eyes in the entire fifth world. Problem is, they put them all in one room. And what you're really supposed to do is crouch in this little depression here, so that you can hit all those rocks without being hit by the shrapnel. Yeah, you can jump through the bottom of those platforms. And those are the only new enemy of any significance. These bugs with plunger feet that attach themselves to the ceiling, at which point they can't be hurt, and launch homing needles at you. Not really that difficult to deal with, but they will annoy you so much. And then up here, a very handy secret, and you can see the cage over to the right, which is the most important part of locating that cage, just knowing where it is, so that you know where to make the leap of faith coming up. And then some timing puzzles, nothing really worse than some of the stuff we saw in World 4. I mentioned they love spikes in this world, right? Pretty much every kind of spike you can imagine shows up somewhere in this world. And a couple of anti-tunes, nothing really tough to deal with. Jumping carefully to make sure that we don't get knocked off the platforms. And of course, grab some extra health, but it's also the actual leap of faith. As long as you know that ledge is out there, it's not hard to figure out what you need to do to get to the cage, but it's not the kind of jump you'd normally want to make blindly. We'll be seeing the consequences of some blind jumps later in the LP. And the cloud is a nice handy shortcut to get back, but if you were listening carefully, there's yet another secret if you ride it all the way back to where the cage was. This will annoy you so much if you don't know that it's there, or can't think like the developers enough to say, hey, this is probably where they would put another secret. And there's the last cage. Like I said last time, we've seen all of the instances where I'm not going to get every cage my first time through the level. The one big problem with World 5 is the cages can be kind of tough to find, and if you miss them all, you really don't want to have to replay any of these levels from scratch. I mean, World 4 was pretty bad, but there's just something about these levels that you don't want to do them more than once. So I'm waiting for the red hook to reappear so I can go back to the left, and then I realize, hey, I don't even need it. I just need to make this jump upwards and grab that hook, which takes quite a while, so let's get by that a bit faster, shall we? And then, of course, my nemesis jumping from the hook onto a ledge above the hook. Doesn't seem like I should have as much trouble with that as I do, but then I almost fall right back down again. Most of the problems that I have with those kinds of jumps, I know I bring on myself. Overcorrecting and stuff like that. And then I hit the helicopter way too early. So we'll just skip back to where I was. And show you the correct path through the level if you're not stopping to get the cages along the way. It's really not that much farther. My first take of this level, actually, was kind of funny. I lost a bunch of lives getting to that second cage because I kept hitting the spikes between the grappling hooks. And at some point I decided, okay, I've lost about as many lives as I'm going to tolerate, and then lost another one getting back from getting the cage. So I cut the recording, and then made it through the rest of the level without losing any lives. So, would have been good enough to keep had I kept the recording going. So, a little inside look at the process there. Now there is a secret over to the left. I didn't catch what it was, and I really didn't feel like sacrificing a great recording to go back and find that there was just extra health or something. But there you have it. That was the entirety of Crystal Palace. All the cages, all the frustration, none of the mess. And next time we'll be doing the infamous Eat It Joes. But that was kind of a short level, so let's say we go back to the Dream Forest and clean up the cages that I left behind there. We'll start with Pink Plant Woods, the very first level in the entire game. You guys remember this, right? Back when people were asking, how can this possibly be one of the hardest games ever made? People must just be really, really bad at video games if they can't manage to get through this. I mean, look, it's nice, pleasant music, lovely jungle background. They just throw power-ups at you right from the start. And of course, it's even easier now that I've got extra power-ups, like the helicopter, and I can run, and almost fall in the water. I can grab these ledges and skip a couple of jumps. In fact, I advise not even going back to any previous levels until you've at least got the helicopter, because it's so handy for the stuff that comes up. Although, this level you can go back and clear out all of the cages as soon as you've beaten Anguish Lagoon and gotten the ledge grab. You can get 2 of the cages once you've got the fist, which you got in this very level. And the only reason you couldn't break them open the first time you saw them was you had no means of doing it. Now, of course, I lost my power-ups in Crystal Palace. I didn't even know these guys took 2 hits to kill until this recording, because I've never had to fight them without the gold fist. And I don't think there's anything up there anyway. So this upper area, as you might have noticed before, is inaccessible if you can't grab the ledge and pull yourself up to it. And the cage is right smack in the middle of it. So you can't get to it from either side. But extra lives are always handy, especially for the parts coming up. Well, not in this video, the next couple videos. So you can get that cage from the right side just by climbing up the vine and winding up quite a bit. This one is actually a bit more dangerous than it looks, because you got to jump over the fish, and that plum moves a lot faster than I gave it credit for. If I didn't have the helicopter, I would have died right there. Yes, died in the very first level of the entire game. So I've got all the cages now, but I figured I'd revisit my old nemesis, the punching the plum across the gap here to get the speed fist, since I actually need the power-ups at this point. And then I figure, screw it. And then I figure, okay, don't screw it, I'll go ahead and actually get it. How hard can it really be? I've got all these extra power-ups now. And then I knock it back to the left. At the very least, having the run power-up makes this part go a little bit faster, aside from all these speeding up, because it doesn't take me as long to scroll it off the screen. And there we go, it wasn't really that bad. Now, grabbing that speed fist in the PC version, which I do hope to get a recording of at some point, is what makes the first cage appear, rather than climbing up to the left and getting the 1-up. Speaking of which, remember this 1-up I couldn't get the first time through? May as well collect it while I'm here. So on to level 2, Anguish Lagoon, and there was only one cage that I couldn't get here, because you need the grapple, which you don't get until Mosquitos Nest. Still pleasant, still full of dancing flowers and mushrooms that stack on top of each other. Nice easy enemies, and these awful, awful swinging plums. And I still have not figured out how far I can or can't jump. So, back to that ledge over there, and I'm trying to make the jump without having to resort to the helicopter, since you don't need it to get to this cage. But you guys don't really want to see that. And that's all I really need in Anguish Lagoon, but there's another thing that I missed that I'd show you, even though I didn't manage to get it in this run-through either. It's easy enough if you know it's coming. I didn't at this point. I have a really bad memory for this kind of stuff, believe it or not. Probably you figured that out by the fact that I missed so many cages my first time through. Speaking of missing, I've told you I'm not very good at this game, right? Now notice that shining spot up there near the vine. You grab that, and that 1-up appears down in the lower left corner. So you gotta be flying way to the right side of the screen here, hit the shining spot, and then fly back to the left to get the 1-up. Not very easy to do, and definitely not worth replaying the level for. So on to the Swamps of Forgetfulness, where I didn't show you guys what Rayman is doing the first time. So, that should give you a better idea of why he's so grateful. But I got all the cages here, so what exactly is it that I came back to do? You might remember there was something that I wasn't able to show you the first time through the level. Specifically, about halfway down this slope, I bumped into the Ting Magician, but I had just gotten a 1-up from Ting's and didn't have enough to play his game. This time, I'm rather rich comparison, so let's go! The final Ting Magician game, I think, that I will be playing in the LP. And it's those revolting swinging plums. I cannot negotiate these things at all. And look at how little time it gives you. I think they just put this in here to troll any of their devoted players. Like, problem, Rayman fans? You jelly? Plum jelly, ha! See, I can't get anywhere. But I will not give up so easily. I can still play this game 3 more times. And make back 1 ting per attempt. See, that one's easy to get. Why can't the rest of them be like that? I think if you screw up even once here, particularly when it comes to timing when you send that second plum moving, there's just no way to get up. I mean, forget about the time. I think I could spend an eternity on this part of the game and not actually get there. So, screw it. I'm just not going to beat that one. The game is not 100%ed. And I'll just show you the path through this level if you don't take the upper route like I did the first time. That's the bottom of the spiky slope just over there to the left. And you just have to jump and duck a couple of spontaneously appearing bullets. Easy enough to do. And take out this guy before the plum hits shore, at which point you will bump into him and fall into the water and die. Simple enough, especially with the helicopter power. And finally, moving on to Mosquitos Nest. Again, I needed the grapple to get one of the cages in this level, which you may notice is right above the start, but we have to go about halfway through this area and double back in order to get it. And of course, these spikes still annoy me. But with the helicopter, they're significantly less of a threat. And then, of course, they just line themselves up perfectly this time, and I get through without any incident. I don't know. I know the game is screwing with me. I just can't figure out what its motive is. So I'm not far enough over to the right yet. And of course, I realize I could just throw my fist while I was standing on that plum and knock it down, but the helicopter definitely helps out here. And of course, this is me kind of forgetting how far to the right I need to go in order to climb up there. But then I remember. You ride on this plum and jump up to that vine over on the right. And now it's just a simple matter of retracing my steps, taking the high road. And with a fully powered up fist, that's not any harder to do than it was the first time. I can helicopter, I could run if I really wanted to, but I don't really feel like running smack into these enemies. And I definitely don't trust the Ting Magician anymore. He keeps making me play his game when I don't want to. So finally, new territory, and it's just this much. There's a cage right over there. And a couple of miscellaneous power-ups, just because. So now, back to the end of the level again, where you may remember I said I couldn't push that plum up the hill because I'm really bad at aiming at it. So I'll just cheese my way to getting this one up as well. And that's it. The Dream Forest is completely complete. I'll save the remainder of the cage roundup for another time. Eat It Joe's coming up next. See you guys for all the pain then.